Check 1 2. And
Look at the people we see here. They're either civil engineers from
I mean, that's not us.
various, and it's
We're over
always
here
the
with
same
some
thing
grass.
all the time.
But it's cool to be a
About
part of
6
that.
firms that come and do it. One of them comes up here to talk. Maybe the attorneys.
Exactly.
Oftentimes the owners are not
Yeah,
here.
yeah, we are.
and watch somebody
I mean,
else
we haven't done much in 2 years,
For the most part, pretty
anyhow.
straightforward.
But we're gonna go back down in March. It'll be our first go since.
Some of the stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
I remember we
last month. I didn't even look at the minutes to see what it showed. I showed it. I
Their house.
come up last month.
Oh, you know, Marty had a problem at the time. You know those warehouses, the small ones out of about 160 Patview Road?
168th and what?
Patview Road. I know we approved that.
Older
Oh, yeah.
brother.
And at the time, I remember going, thinking on my own, what's your issue here? And then I drove by them there.
And I won't let him forget it.
Yeah, they just kind of.
Yeah, there's 12 years between us.
Kind of in the way. Honestly, that's what I.
And I was not an accident.
went around
Swear to
the
God.
road out there.
At least that's what the story they tell me.
God damn it, they're in the way.
They're probably not.
He's my age, isn't he?
He'll be 67 in March.
Close. Yeah. All right, well, why don't we call the meeting to order? Please take roll.
Gardner,
Here.
Ackley. Here. Davis. Korth. Here. Preston.
Here.
Huddleston.
Here.
Weiss. Whitfield.
Here.
Giff. Here. Cheney. Here. Vernock.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, this is a public meeting which is subject to the Nebraska Open Meetings Act. A current copy of that law and the rules and regulations and guidelines for this meeting are posted on the north wall of this room, and they're also posted online at the Sarpy County website under the Planning Commission page. This evening, we have Jason Kubicek, Donna Lynham, Kelly Jeck, Nicole Spitzenberger, Scott McAleer, Jamie Eastman, and Don Simon with the county. This evening, I'm also happy to introduce new Planning Commissioner Heather Cheney. Heather, once we get through the agenda, we'll have a little bit of a time set aside if you'd like to give your background to the folks.
Okay.
Would someone care to make a motion on the minutes from the December 21st meeting?
Motion to approve is written.
I'd second that.
We have a motion by Ackley, a second by Giff. Please vote.
All right. Who am I? Gardner, how would you,
Abstain.
you're going to,
Abstained.
okay.
It didn't take.
Okay, that's okay. All right, so we have quorum not met on the minutes.
Kelly, I voted for, and for some reason it has me as abstaining.
Okay, let me, just a minute here. So Nicole, it's still saying quorum not met because there's 2 absent, 4.
I don't have the meeting, let's mark it as approved for now, and if it, I'll evaluate the meeting, bylaws, thank you, all I could think of was minutes, meeting bylaws, to make sure that, this holds. If it doesn't hold, then we'll just vote again next month.
All right, so we'll say 5 votes for, 4 abstaining. They are Igardner, Cheney, Whitfield, and Korth. For now, the motion carries.
Yeah, I'll verify. Does anyone have any questions?
How improper is it?
How improper would it be for a person that was not here
To vote?
to vote?
Oh, it's, I'm not gonna say it's improper. I think it's fine, but I'll just verify. I think our meeting bylaws probably say that it's a quorum, or I'm sorry, it's the majority of who voted. So on planning, actual planning actions, that's a separate issue, but on meeting minutes, we're probably okay. If not, you'll get it next time, so.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, under the regular agenda, normally I have a fairly long script I go through, but since there's no one in the public this evening, I'm going to cut that short. And Heather, for your benefit, when the item comes up for vote, we either approve with changes, disapprove, or table, but we do have to take action. So, with that, agenda item 1, Sarpy County Planning and Building Department has submitted an application for consideration of text amendments.
Good evening, Commissioners. The agenda item before you tonight are a set of proposed text amendments for the following sections in the Sarpy County zoning regulations. Section 9, Agricultural Farming District. Section 20, General Business District. Section 21, Heavy General Business District. Section 22, Light Industrial District. And Section 44, Definitions. The amendments include, in the Agricultural Farming Zoning District, add sports and recreation facilities controlled impact, and recreation facilities, and sports and recreation facilities high impact as permitted special uses. In the general business, heavy general business, and light industrial zoning districts, remove the word commercial from commercial sports and recreation facilities, controlled impact, and commercial sports and recreation facilities high impact. In the definitions section, replace the existing definitions for commercial, sports and recreation facilities, controlled and high impact, with new definitions for sports and recreation facilities, controlled impact, and high impact. These amendments are being proposed as a result of recent inquiries and proposed applications for sports training facilities on parcels zoned agricultural farming. Douglas County, the City of Papillion, the City of Gretna, and the City of Springfield all currently allow use types that are similar to the sports and recreation facilities. Controlled and high impact is written in their agricultural zoning districts. The word commercial is being removed from the title of both uses because the definition states that it may or may not be commercial. So the removal of the word commercial removes the contradiction if the proposed use is not commercial. For clarity, multiple examples of facility types have been added to the new definitions for sports and recreation facilities. Use types that are being added to controlled impact are indoor gaming facilities, including arcades, bowling, billiards, and pool halls. Indoor gymnasiums, including fitness facilities, indoor shooting facilities, and other indoor sports and training facilities. Use types being added to the high impact are outdoor theater, festivals, and concerts, including amphitheaters, stadiums, and coliseums, arenas and field houses, independent golf range, driving range, and miniature golf, outdoor skating facilities, water slides, miniature golf, motorcycle racing and drag strips, museums and theme parks. And also just with a future rewrite of the zoning regulations, which is upcoming, it is the intention of the planning department staff to further clarify the uses added to the definitions of sports and recreation facilities, controlled impact, and high impact. Staff is recommending approval of the changes to the Sarpy County zoning regulations, Section 9, Agricultural Farming District, Section 20, General Business District, Section 21, Heavy General Business District, Section 22, Light Industrial District, and Section 44, Definitions, as shown in Attachment A, which is the red line copy of the Sarpy County zoning districts, or zoning regulations. Staff believes the text amendments are consistent with the overall zoning regulations of the county. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Any questions for staff at this time? Seeing none, I'd like to open the public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to speak to this matter from the public? Seeing none, I'd like to close the public hearing. And any further discussion, or would anyone care to make a motion from the commission?
I think we should further discuss this. I wonder if this is really what we want to do as a county, allowing this development in our ag rather than having it come through light industrial or industrial. I'm wondering, why do we need arcades in the agricultural district, for example? I'm not opposed to the changes to the definitions or to the uses. What I'm opposed to is the idea that we would allow this in our ag district as a county.
Would anyone care to address that question?
To the best of my ability, without having Nicole come up here and beat me in the back of my head.
Thank you for that being on record.
As Jason said, we are working on a rewrite of the zoning regulations, and we will further clarify those uses. Right, and I tried, when I first wrote this, but it was like rewriting the whole book in order to do that. So that is why they're listed that way, but when we do the rewrite, they will be permitted in certain districts and not in others. It'll all be a recreational use, but certain types of recreational uses will be allowed in certain zoning districts and not in others.
Right. But what we're doing tonight is changing the definitions and allowing these uses in ag.
Yes.
Yes. I'm not opposed to the changes in the definitions. I'm opposed to using them in ag.
So you're opposed to even the sports and recreation being allowed as a special permitted use in the ag zoning?
Yeah,
Okay.
I am.
Would it help to?
And that's something that, I mean, and I understand if that's your feelings and that's your comments.
Right,
So-
and that seems to be, I mean, from the people in my area of the county, the mostly agricultural, that seems to be a prevailing point of view. You know, the farmers don't necessarily want these kinds of things in with their farms, traffic to deal with them while they're doing harvest, that kind of thing. It's just not something, and I think as a county, do we want these kind of things popping up here and there throughout the county rather than having a natural progression? This is, I'm nodding to you, having a natural progression of development through the exterior of our cities, and then, 5 miles out in the country, we've got, so I know, anyway, go on. This is my argument. Yeah.
No,
it's a
and
rhetorical
that's your,
question.
yeah, that's
it's a
your
rhetorical
comments.
question
and-
to you, yeah.
Right. So
don't
we
need to answer
were
that.
asked to
Yeah.
bring this amendment forward, and so we did.
Would it help to offer a few examples of people who want this to be approved? Is it a soccer complex? Is it a softball complex?
Yeah, as long as, so,
It would be private ownership, or it
Yeah.
could be commercial.
There,
can give
there
them
are a
that
few upcoming
exists.
applications, and I've cautioned them from discussing the specifics of the upcoming applications, but I think if you talk in generalities of what, without naming names and possibly locations, because the applicants are not here,
Sure.
but I think she can talk to kind of the generalities. Okay.
Generalities are, I mean, yes, it would be like an indoor soccer complex or an indoor baseball training facility, or it could be an indoor swimming pool, indoor tennis courts. For controlled impact, for high impact, it could be outdoor with lighting, with loudspeakers, that kind of thing. But they're all special permitted uses. They're not something that you can have outright. They all have to make application. They all have to submit an operational plan, site plan. It's, reviewed by staff. It's reviewed by all departments in the county. And then it comes before you guys for, you guys to review and amend if you want to, or put additional stipulations on it. And then it goes to county board. Your recommendation goes to county board. So it does have to go through
Well, I understand.
a
Yeah,
process.
I understand. I mean, that's what we're here for, right?
Right.
But I
If it's going to create traffic, then we could require a traffic study, that type of thing. So
I understand. It doesn't change my view.
and I'm not trying to.
No.
Would Vala's and the Halloween, I can't think of the Halloween,
Scary Acres.
Scary Acres, thank you. Would they fall under this new, they have
they were in
special
our
use permits
jurisdiction,
already.
yes, they probably
But they would
would.
be recreational
Right.
if they were starting over at this point.
If they were in our jurisdiction, yes.
Well, Scary Acres is, right? They came before us a few months ago. Well,
They might not be anymore.
right.
As of October 20th, they might not be. I'm not sure on Scary Acres. I know Vala's is not ours anymore.
Scary Acres
Right.
is
And I'll give an example since the Bellevue Soccer Club has 40 acres ag, and it's operated as a soccer club with outdoor fields for
Right.
50 years. So
And that's under Bellevue city limits.
when it was built, I don't know, but it is now. It's within the
Currently,
city's
it's under-
ETJ,
Right,
but it's zoned ag.
right. But there's the difference. We're in the examples that were given here, those are all Papillion City, Gretna City, Springfield City. They're city uses, even though it's the ag district.
I did include Douglas County, just
I know.
But
I know, but Douglas County
I'm
is so
just
much.
giving an example of what
City.
use could be on an ag land.
Right.
And you really rezone it light industrial for a soccer complex? And I don't know,
I think so.
Another example, though, that's probably more to what Deanna's referring to is like that outdoor theater, I don't know if it's open yet, that they're putting in north of Fremont, and that's definitely out in the middle of cornfields. It's north of Valley, excuse me. North of Valley, about 3-4 miles north of Valley, north of 75, surrounded by cornfields, but it's a big screen outdoor theater. And I think that's what concerns you, is something like that occurring in a rural area of the county.
In our county, yeah.
I share some of her concerns in developing ag property for commercial uses and these other industrial uses via special use permit. So whereas you wouldn't necessarily allow any of these uses by right because they're somewhat incompatible with the surrounding ag property, I have some concern about allowing them all by special use permit. A lot of these uses would be incompatible with surrounding ag property, and you're just, by opening the door with the special use permit procedure, you're just putting it on this committee and then the board to make ad hoc decisions that maybe should be precluded by zoning with base districts, rather than relying on looking at everyone with a special use permit. So I have concerns about commercializing and industrializing the ag parts of the county on a piecemeal basis. And that's what I see this leading to.
Well said.
I guess question for staff on some of the other communities where you saw these rules, do they give any additional guidelines? As an example, if you had an indoor soccer complex, that seems completely different than the outdoor theme park or where it talks about a motorcycle racing or drag strips. I mean, what kind of things do you end up having to analyze in terms of noise and buffers and, again, parking? There's another one here talks about the outdoor theater festivals and concerts. I know we've previously dealt with the group that's kind of south of Offutt Air Force Base, which falls within our jurisdiction. I think they do outdoor movies, but they also do camping. You know, would we allow camping with something like this, or that's a completely different, you know, with special use? Can they request that as part of it?
When I went in to do that research, I didn't necessarily go into each one of their definitions to understand which use type or which activities were in there either. So I can't really answer that question fully. But there are some slight variations in the way, you know, so I can't recall exactly which ones it was, which municipalities they were, but the agricultural district might have been transitional ag. The commercial recreation might have had a little slight variation in it, but I looked for the general existence of commercial recreation, sports and recreation, and so that's where that statement came from.
There are 20, well, if this passes, there will be 29 permitted special uses in the ag district. So there's already 27, we're adding 2 more. And some of them are, you know, very commercial.
So
If it's the wishes of the board that they don't like the typical uses included, you could take that information out of the definition and still move this forward, and then we can take and put it back in the definitions once we have our zoning regulations and we have it listed as to in what districts an arcade may be allowed, or in what district a racetrack may be allowed, type thing. We can add it back in at that time.
can you give us a snapshot? So if this were to be approved or recommended for approval, would this be like a 1-year time span before the new regulations come out? And would the new regulations completely take the place of anything that we recommend approval on tonight?
I'll give you an estimated timeline that you will see a draft document within the next 30 to 60 days.
Oh, so really this is more of a
And
matter of
once
convenience?
that document is adopted as a whole, it will replace anything that we do tonight.
I'm a little hesitant to remove definitions and change, because that's just opening the door to get pickled in the next 90 days.
My concern was the intensity of the use, so I like the amendment to get rid of commercial, because if you're not charging for something but it's just as onerous on the surrounding properties, that's irrelevant. It's the intensity of the use that we're looking at. So I like that portion, getting rid of the commercial as an argument that, hey, we're not charging anything. Sorry, we have 4,000 people here, but it's not commercial. I like that part. And then to Mr. Ackley's point, I think it does depend on the activities. You've got kind of a mixed bag in here that are all over the board in terms of the impact on surrounding properties, and putting them all in there is just a lot to process in one category.
And I'm not going to deny that. Again, at first blush of this, there was red all over this book, and I thought, I'm rewriting the book, which we're already working with a consultant to do, so,
Remind me, does that come before us then?
yes, it will.
Okay, thanks.
So really, if we're uncomfortable with this tonight, anything that would come forward, we would get to review under a special use permit. And then shortly thereafter, there would be the new regulations, which we would be able to
I said
provide.
the draft document would be before you within the next 30 to 60 days.
That's
I can't tell
exactly
you when it's
what
going
I
to be
meant to
adopted.
say.
So I guess I would ask you to consider maybe if moving, or at least putting something forward that you feel comfortable with. If you have to make an amendment to the language that was presented, that's up to the board. That's not for,
So the potential current applications that you have, the issue is the type of zoning as opposed to? in other
any
words, they
potential
don't-
applications that we may have would probably be more of a sports training facility.
And under
Controlled impact.
And under our current definitions, where would they fit?
Under current definitions, potentially the way that, can you bring the screen back up again, please? I mean, right now, under controlled impact with commercial sports and recreation facilities, it says shall mean a private business or other organization that may or may not be commercial by structure or by nature, primarily engaged in provisions of sponsorship of sports, entertainment, or recreation for participants or spectators. Controlled impacts commercial sports and recreation uses typically take place entirely within an enclosed building or when outdoors have limited effects. Typical uses include indoor skating facilities, indoor gymnasiums, and other indoor sports and training facilities. But as staff, not only in the planning department, but in other departments, we feel like saying a commercial sports and recreation facility, we want these people to know it's a sports and recreation training facility. So that's why this is coming before you.
So maybe I misunderstood what you asked, but what it brings up for me is you asked about what was potentially coming, what was potentially.
Or what would happen with that application today? In other words, would
Right. Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt, but so in what districts would the application apply? The ones that you have coming,
Agricultural,
ag?
so
and currently, those definitions aren't allowed in ag.
currently they are allowed in ag. As a special permitted use, commercial recreation areas and camping areas. But we don't feel like that really, that's what we've used all along. And now that we are having conversations with certain property owners, we feel like it is more representation to say sports and recreation facilities. Because it's not a fishing lake, it's not a gun club, it's not a rifle range, it's not trap shoot. And we don't feel it's similar to those uses. Therefore, that's why we're bringing the text amendment forward.
But those uses seem more similar to ag, right? They're outgrowths of an ag.
More ag adjacent.
So,
And I just have trouble thinking you wouldn't rezone any of these application sites to industrial or commercial, like out in the middle of nowhere, to accommodate this application. But by doing this, you're allowing that by special use, which doesn't seem to sit right.
I think the definition too is pretty broad when we're referring to bowling alleys and arcades and pool halls.
Again,
They are nowhere near a,
this
a
is what's
fishing-
presented, you can vote on it, you can amend it, you can do what you want with it.
Or we could hold it over, wait for the new regs.
Donna, you mentioned commercial came out, but the one in front of us, I think it still says commercial.
The one in front of you means.
Shall mean a private business or other organization that may or may not be commercial by structure or nature in the new definition.
In the definition part of it, yes, commercial is still in there because it may or may not be commercial in nature. But we didn't want to call out commercial sports and recreation because it could be private.
Gotcha, okay.
What value does may or may not be commercial add in the definition? I mean, is there something else besides may or may not be commercial?
May or may not be commercial. It may be a private ownership. It may be a private club.
Maybe nonprofit.
It may be a nonprofit, which is not commercial.
Right, right. We're not excluding anything by saying may or may not,
We're not excluding anything, no.
so it adds no value. That was,
I didn't make the definition up. I got it from someplace.
Where the Sarpy County Fair occurs each year, and they've got the track for the demolition derby and things, was that ever Sarpy County jurisdiction when that first went in, or is that?
Not to my knowledge, it was never Sarpy County jurisdiction. The may or may not be commercial by structure or by nature was in the original definition,
I see.
which has probably created BD, that poor Donna.
I've got a question for Nicole. There was a few of us that were on this board when the sexually oriented businesses came through.
Yes.
And I remember a general discussion about you cannot zone, my words, you cannot zone a use out of existence.
Correct.
So we'll pick on my favorite sport, soccer. I'm going to start a new soccer club, and we say you got to be light industrial. Would it be spot zoning to put light industrial out in the middle of nowhere?
Yes. Likely, yes.
So we just zoned a entity out of existence, possibly, to me.
Well, not exactly.
Okay.
Because there are probably other locations that are light industrial that would be allowed to have a soccer complex. The thing about sexually oriented businesses is that they're very unique, and a lot of people generally don't want to be next to them. Now, that may be the same thing of a stadium, but
Yeah, I brought that up because I remember us having that discussion of you can't zone.
Right, you
Like a
can't-
church.
you
A church can
can't-
go anywhere. A public school can go anywhere per state statute, I believe. So, to me, we've got to be careful tightening our zoning regulations so tight that people aren't looking at us for a car manufacturing facility, because they're going to need 1,000 acres out in the middle of nowhere.
correct.
So, I don't know, tough deal.
Another technical point on maybe your discussion here, Doug, is that it's not just light industrial that it's currently allowed in. It's general business, heavy general business, and light industrial. So,
But on the same hand, you're not going to take 100 acres out in the middle of ag land and all of a sudden turn it to general business because somebody wants to build a soccer complex. That, to me, that would be spot zoning, because the zoning doesn't fit the surrounding areas at all. So it's just kind of a tough
and how does
conundrum.
how does that compare to your auto manufacturing example? You lost me.
So let's say an auto manufacturing wanted to come in here and buy 1,000 acres out in the middle of ag land.
Yeah.
Would they have to rezone it light industrial? And if so, is that spot zoning because there's no light industrial anywhere near it?
And it is, right? Right.
Well, that puts the county at a negative to get industry and people in here.
Unless the land use map indicates that
Yep.
we would see industry going.
I mean, there's always ways to get there, but it
Right.
just makes it more cumbersome.
Right, but, I mean, the example of the auto manufacturer compared to the examples of other uses such as soccer and baseball, et cetera, complexes, is such a far-fetched idea. I think we should be regulating to the most likely scenario and not some imaginary, far-fetched use that may or may not come along who knows when in the county. I mean, I think that would be a much larger issue if a large company wanted to build in Sarpy County. It would be much larger than something that would come before our board, certainly.
And as a follow-up to that, something in agreement with what you're saying, Deanna, is that a facility like that is not going to go look for 1,000 acres out in the middle of nowhere because it's going to have utilities.
And employees.
So
Yeah.
it's two different sides of the coin here, but what we're talking about.
Right. Yeah, it is.
So that's not likely to ever happen because it's going to have infrastructure.
But won't all of that require a special use permit anyway?
Yep. I gotta ask, what's Facebook zoned?
Not in our jurisdiction, I don't know.
What was it when it was
I think it was annexed for,
before?
I think they extended the ETJ before it.
Okay.
came. Otherwise, it would have come probably before you guys, and we were working on it, but
Because utilities feed ag land too, so,
Pavilion took it over before we were.
before we got there.
I'm pretty sure it was ag because it was owned by a church, so I think they
Yeah.
left it as ag and used it for farming.
So, Ms. Lynham, you suggested we could delete the sentence that references typical uses include in each of these definitions, I guess. Does that leave you with too much purview over what would or would not fit within it? Because the intro would talk about engaged in the provision and their sponsorship of sports, entertainment, or recreation for participants or spectators. Controlled impact commercial sports uses typically take place entirely within enclosed buildings or when outdoors have minimal effect related to lighting, hours of operation, or noise. I'm just.
It would
again-
still give, it still is potentially opens it for a wide variety, but it doesn't actually put it in black and white in writing. It would still be a determination, but I can promise you that I don't have an application. I haven't even talked to anybody about an application about an arcade or a bowling rink or a racetrack.
Billiard hall? Is there one in the county?
But at least it takes the typical uses that are listed and it doesn't put it in black and white, that they are, typical uses. So somebody couldn't come and see, well, it says right there, arcade. But reading the definition, could you put an arcade underneath that? Yeah, you probably could. But for the proposed applications that have been discussed, it would still work for those applications to come before you for consideration. You guys put your stipulations on it.
I can think
Staff
of.
hasn't already put on them. I mean, staff's going to ask for certain things because we realize that, that's what planning is. We're here to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public.
On the west edge of Gretna, there's a metal building, pretty good size, 30,000 square feet. That's a indoor soccer training facility. Is that correct?
There's outdoor fields.
Surrounded by horse farms and it's got some one or two
Does have
outdoor
outdoor
fields and
fields as
whatnot.
well.
And and I don't think it's kind of strange out there. Actually, I think they might have even had a zoning change on that. I'm not positive, But nevertheless, I mean, it really doesn't adversely affect anything. Nobody seems to be too bothered by it, but I don't think it has like any outdoor lighting on any fields. I think its use is fairly non-invasive to the neighborhood, and it's accepted out there, even though it's a use that's a little strange for being surrounded by horse farms. But at the same time, another thing I'm personally familiar with is some old metal buildings, barn-type buildings that are on acreage, larger acreages and farms in Sarpy County that I've personally been into, and they are indoor baseball training facilities or fitness-type facilities or whatnot. They don't have a lot of visible exposure. I think their participants are few and far between. It's not commercial per se. Maybe it is, but it's very low volume, and most people probably don't even know what happens there. I wouldn't have known it happened there had I not been in it, but it does. And so those things exist around the county, and I guess if they're used with a very low impact, I don't think anybody really cares that much. But I don't know how we write the definition to limit the volume or impact to those uses in this definition. I think that's maybe the quandary that we're
I think
here.
those limitations come with the stipulations that are put in the special use permit when it's approved.
How about something as basic as parking, whether you would require asphalt, cement, gravel? Again, I think of ag and I think of gravel being okay. If we were doing a commercial operation somewhere, we're probably going to require lots of asphalt if they're going to be parking a lot of cars.
And again, that is a decision that, if the applicant is proposing gravel and you guys feel like it should be asphalt, that's a decision that you as a planning commission could put that stipulation in your motion.
I mean, what Mr. Giff was just suggesting across from the theater in Bellevue on 36th Street, on the east side of 36 there's a metal building. I think they use it for taekwondo and softball, and again, it's just a gravel parking field on the north side. You don't see it from the road, but lots of folks use the facility. It's probably zoned ag back in there.
So what kind of traffic impacts does that have, that facility? Are you around it enough?
When I've dropped kids off or picked them up from there, it's
Been pretty bad, hasn't it?
usually a potholed gravel parking lot, and you're doing the drop-off and the pickup 2 hours later, and
And there are lots of other families doing the same thing.
yeah, of course, you also got the theater across the street, so again, that's more a traffic area than if they're going out in the middle of farm country.
Exactly. Yeah. When in farm country, we could be on a 2-lane highway, for example, and you've got traffic backed up down the road. That's a hazard to have that situation. A lot of where I am, you all know, well, I don't know if you know where I am or not, but I'm in Schramm Park. We're down along Highway 31. And if we were to have traffic backups there, it would be a hazard. It would be a dangerous situation because it's a 2-lane highway. That's fairly well traveled. If we're talking about someplace out on gravel roads, maybe that's not such a hazard because it's less traveled. But the ag land around South Sarpy, a lot of it is bisected by highway. Do we want to put that kind of I know I get the special use argument. I get that. I just don't think that these kinds of places should exist in ag. There are enough places within city limits, within the villages, in the county, that are ag that could have these places. It doesn't need to be out in the country, disrupting farmers, disrupting traffic, causing potentially, with asphalt, who knows about runoff situations and that kind of thing. It just doesn't belong there. And the development of our county, do we want it to go in that direction where we're allowing things to pop up wherever? I don't think we do. I don't.
Just rereading the definition again and potential uses, I guess, isn't there a junk stock, they call it, has become popular out towards Elkhorn Valley area? Again, I don't know what zoning is, or if it's just out in a farm and they got rows of people set up their stuff for the weekend, which I guess you could call that entertainment.
It's huge, and it's a traffic nightmare. They have buses to bring people in and out of that place.
And she's correct about that. I mean, the county's actually had to do road improvement projects because of the volume of traffic out there, and they have to hire, a special police forcing, traffic control, everything else during those weekends when they have that. I think it is zoned ag. I'm almost positive it's zoned ag, but I do know that they had to pave the road out in front because the traffic was such an issue. And that does jump into this. It's gotten so big, and something could get big where they have 25 or 30 food trucks out there when they have that.
Yes, they do.
I mean, it's an absolute madhouse. It'll back up traffic from Waterloo all the way to Elkhorn.
Yeah.
And that's on a 4-lane highway.
So not disagreeing with anything anybody said, if you look at the permitted special uses in ag, automobile wrecking and junkyards, there's traffic coming in. Commercial recreational areas and camping
Wait,
areas.
Hold on. Intensity.
I have the floor.
Fine.
Construction, demolition, and waste disposal sites. The landfill was in ag, had a lot of traffic going to it. Country clubs, golf courses, tennis clubs, and swimming clubs. Rock, sand, gravel, clay, and dirt extraction. Mobile homes. Nursing homes, cemeteries, charitable institutions. Let's see, I'm trying to pick on the ones that have a lot of traffic. So we already have things in the ag special permitted uses that require a special use permit that could have a lot of traffic. I think that ship has sailed under our current regulations. I'm okay with changing the definitions if you want, but I think we need to move this forward and tighten it up a little bit in the new regulations if we need to for the arcades and some of those things that are more obviously a general business kind of a thing, skating rinks. Nobody's going to build a skate land out in the middle of nowhere. I don't see that happening, but you never know, I guess. So that's my 2 cents. That we already have it. Let's move.
For the record, I think the company I work for designed the facility that Mr. Giff referred to out in Gretna. It was a group of family members who had a soccer club, and they owned the land, and it was a economical way to provide a quality recreational experience for their children. So it wasn't really necessarily a for-profit commercial venture, but I'm fine with what you've presented this evening based on the information that we're going to have new regulations coming out, and any case that comes before the commission will be fully vetted through the special use permit process. So that's my position. So we have the ability to make a motion to approve with changes, to disapprove, or to table. Any further discussion, or would anyone like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion, but I'm not quite sure how to do it, because I want to exclude item number A from what I move that we approve.
Deanna, were you talking to the mic pretty?
Thought I had it on. Now is it on?
I can help you. What is?
Is my mic on or not?
I can't hear you.
It was
No.
before. It's on now.
Yeah.
Okay,
But-
so,
Yeah.
okay, I'll lean in. So I would like to make a motion, but I would like to exclude A from it,
From,
the motion. Yeah.
Well, when you refer first
Summary
to
of
A.
changes proposed. Add sports and rec to ag zoning district.
okay, so let me make sure I understand. So you want to approve the text amendments as submitted, except you do not want the sports and recreation facilities, controlled impact and high impact added to the ag zoning.
She wants to make a recommendation to approve as submitted, taking out section 9 agricultural farming district.
That.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the text amendments as submitted with the exception of adding the special use permits to the ag district as written in A of the summary of proposed changes.
Approve the special use, approve the changes to the zoning regulations excluding section 9 changes.
Does that say it?
Is that,
Yes.
okay.
That's.
And would that be because,
They conform to the
comprehensive plan?
yes, the spirit of the comprehensive plan.
There you
Thank
go.
very much.
Did you get that, Kelly?
Yes.
Okay.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that, Preston.
Hold on a second here.
Please vote.
Gardner, how would you like to vote?
Against, please.
Can-
And Ms. Cheney, I know you're new tonight. Is there, if you're going to abstain, can you just state for the record the reason for abstention?
Only because I don't feel knowledgeable enough about the subject to give a proper answer.
Okay, that's fine. I think that happened with Mr. Preston his first night, I remember, or somebody's first night. Was it you?
Yeah,
You?
oh, yeah, it was
I
Bill.
remember it was like a
We had a
real.
packed house.
Yeah.
It was an ugly one.
It was
So-
real ugly, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember the issue, but we had a packed house.
So,
With water.
Yeah.
so for the record, we have 4 votes for. They are Ackley, Giff, Korth, and Preston. We have 4 votes against. They are Gardner, Whitfield, Huddleston, Vernock, and 2 abstaining. Motion failed.
So typically, you guys know the spiel. When a motion fails, I do ask that you try and take another vote. And if that one fails again, I think the last time we did this, it was another highly contentious issue. We just send it forward as no recommendation. So if there's another, we'll wait a few minutes. If there's another motion, great. If we'll see how that plays out. And I'm not one for doing like the school boards and taking 237 votes. So
I guess question for staff again, Ms. Lynham or Mr. Kubitschek, you suggested that there's probably language changes coming in the next 30 to 60 for the zoning ordinance? Or is it?
Yeah, it's complete changes to the zoning regulations. definitions are probably similar, but the way things are laid out, it's a lot more specific to the activity. So instead of being listed within a district, it's all together in a table by activity. And so you can get a lot more precision on which zoning district it's allowed in. So I think that's the advantage of the way we're proposing the changes in the future.
And the future changes coming up, would you anticipate those will probably be submitted to Planning Commission, discussed at a meeting, and then wait for a month to vote on? Or you're thinking, again, if you're redoing the entire zoning ordinance, I'm assuming a ton of changes.
The discussion is that a document will be presented to the commission. We will have a workshop on it, and there may very well be a public open house on it, and then it'll come back to you for a recommendation.
So if I'm a potential applicant for a sports and recreation facility, I'm thinking this is going to take 6 months plus before, if we were to hold this over, to get that part of it done.
I probably have a goal of 4 months, but yes, it could take 6 months.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Well, it's easy to think about doing a motion to hold over, but the reality is, why don't we have someone make an alternative motion here and see if we end up in the same place depending what spin you might put on it.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the changes to the Sarpy County zoning regulations, Section 9, Agricultural Farming District, Section 20, General Business District, Section 21, Heavy General Business District, Section 22, Light Industrial District, and Section 44, definitions, as shown in Attachment A. That was the red line copy of the Sarpy County zoning regulations, including Sections 9, 20, 21, 22, and 44, as the changes meet the intent of the Sarpy County comprehensive development plan.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Who seconded?
A. Gardner.
Oh, thank you.
So we have a motion by Whitfield, a second by A. Gardner. Please vote.
I guess, can we do a slight discussion here? I think that's appropriate. Motion and a second and discussion. I would feel more comfortable if we were to maybe amend your motion to remove the typical uses language from both of those. Again, it leaves it more wide open for what the special use permit may be, and probably less argument by a potential applicant with regard to, hey, you specifically said that use is allowed.
I am willing to make that amendment to my motion. How specific do you want me to be, Nicole? Good idea. You gonna make me start over?
If you are willing to amend and the person who seconded is also willing to amend, then we don't actually have to vote. We can just restate it. And can you speak on the record, Mr.?
Yes.
You are willing.
I am willing to do that as well.
Okay, so then if I understand it correctly, the motion would be you move to approve the regulations as submitted, including all the sections, except you, from both of the definitions, you would remove is it just the last sentence?
Correct. The sentence that starts
use.
with typical uses include
Yeah.
to the end of each definition.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, I support that.
okay. Okay.
Yep.
Yep, and Mr. Whitfield and I. Gardner
Yep.
both said yes.
Exactly.
Any other discussion? Please vote.
GIF?
Yes.
Okay.
Mine didn't pop up.
All right. Whitfield?
Yes.
Yep.
Sorry, he was hiding.
Nope, that's all right. And I. Gardner.
Yes.
Voting for. We've got 6 votes for, 2 votes against. They are Korth and Preston. Motion carries.
And just, Ms. Cheney, can you restate your abstention reason again? Just
I abstain just because I do not have the knowledge base to make an informed decision at this point. Thank you.
thank you.
Well, that concludes our regular agenda. Next is the correspondence agenda, and why don't we start, Heather, if you would like to give us a little background on yourself, whatever you're comfortable.
Sure. My name is Heather Cheney, and I am a United States Air Force veteran. 4 years was the time that I served, so not a lifer, but I enjoyed my time in the Air Force. Moved to Nebraska from Alaska, probably about, I don't even know what year this is. I've been here a very long time. So I grew up in Colorado, but when I moved here from Alaska, it took a little while, but now it's home. So I love living here. I love the community. I have been in a real estate world for over 18 years. I've worked in probably every facet of real estate, from commercial sales to residential sales, title and escrow. I actually held a corporate position doing marketing and some consulting as far as like vendor relations and stuff like that. I went back into sales full time about 6 years ago, and that's my bread and butter currently. And I'm very excited for this opportunity. I feel like I have a lot to learn, and I'm super excited for this. Just bear with me, and I'll get up to speed. And thank you again for having me, and it's nice to meet everybody. So thank you.
Welcome.
Any other commissioner reports? I believe we should plan on having the commission election next month if we're going to have a meeting.
Yeah, we'll have a meeting.
There'll be a meeting.
So our next meeting is February 15th, is that right?
February 15th, yes.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and we will have a meeting, but I do want to take the opportunity to introduce Don Simon. He is the new Sarpy County building official. He started with us early November, but did not come to the December meeting. So he's here tonight. You'll probably see him around at planning commission meetings, just so that he's kind of in the loop in case Jason's ever out, and so that he gets the pleasure of running the meetings, because Donna will be out of here after next month. So
We've heard this before.
Yeah, she's going to the DR, though.
no, but I did want to introduce Donna.
Yes. Vacation.
Welcome.
No, they have 2 vacations. As I said, I told you, yours husband last time.
Hello, I'll just give you a brief description of where I've been and where I came from. For the last 10 years, I've been in Fremont, so I was the the certified floodplain manager there. We also had a large flood. It was impacted great on the Platte River, just like you were here. I served as the chief building official out there. So we had some pretty good projects in the last 10 years, the Costco processing plant, and along with that came a hatchery, a feed mill, a research facility where they tested all the different birds at different periods throughout their growth and any issues they had. And then there was a transition of all kinds of a development that came along with that, as far as workforce housing, contractors from the outside, developers from the outside. So that closed community became real big, real fast. But I'm real excited to be here. There's a lot of good people here. There just seems to be a lot going on. Before Fremont, I was in La Vista for 10 years. So I spent my time there at Cabela's, the center out there, the 2 hotels, and then obviously the PayPals and all the houses. And now they're kind of landlocked. You probably all know that. But I'm from South Omaha. I've lived in Ralston. I've lived in La Vista. I've lived in Papillion. So I live in Bennington now. It was like halfway. But at some point, I'd like to move back here. And I'm just happy to be here. Anybody have any questions or anything? Okay.
Forward to working.
Well, thank you.
Well, if there's nothing else, I think we can adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Miss that kid.